My name's Nigel Skinner, and welcome to my presentation about our recent research. This research was conducted by a small group of MSc students at Bangor University under the supervision of Professor Fay Short. A link to the study handout is provided in the comments section below. If you're watching this presentation, then you're likely interested in psychology, counselling and wellbeing therapies, and have surely heard of nature-based therapies like walk and talk, woodland wandering, forest bathing, etc. You probably already know that overwhelming research extols the benefits of being outside in nature, and then it makes us feel better. But what if you can't access such environments? Maybe because of a disability or illness, or just the practicalities of access. Or maybe as therapists, we want to bring those natural benefits into our therapy rooms as an intervention or just as decor. That was the aim of our study, to see if just viewing an image of nature could help ease feelings of anxiety and stress. We're also keen to understand if it made a difference as to what type of environment was viewed, and whether viewing for twice as long produced better results. The video that's just been playing on the screen was a sped up example of one of the image interventions we used in this study. Nature studies have typically compared different environment types and how restorative they are to mental well-being, or how they make us feel. In scientific studies, natural environments tend to be categorised as either green, meaning foliage-based, such as woodlands, fields or forests, etc., or blue, meaning water-based, such as rivers, seas, lakes and so forth. Both blue and green are generally found to be restorative when compared to urban environments. And many studies researching nature's benefits consider why we feel good in such environments. Popular theories consider we are still reliant upon our innate traits, which were instilled back in the dawn of man. Two such evolutionary theories are the biophilia hypothesis and the savanna hypothesis. The biophilia hypothesis suggests that we find comfort, pleasure and well-being in natural settings, and it encompasses our emotional connection to living organisms and ecosystems. It considered this is why we seek out green spaces, enjoy natural views and feel restored in natural environments. The savanna hypothesis is similar and suggests that we prefer and are less stressed and anxious when viewing open natural aspects that afford us the ability to spot danger and seek out sustenance. Both of these propose evolutionary origins as the reasons behind our enjoyment for nature. There has been some contradictory research which claims to dispute the savanna hypothesis, and which suggests that a personal preference and a liking for your own place of origin are the simple reasons that we like particular environments. However, these studies did not measure cognitive restoration, only how an environment made the participant feel. Therefore, I don't consider these to be a test of an innate preference, but rather a test of subjective preference. Recent studies commissioned by the World Health Organization align with the savanna and biophilia hypotheses. The studies also found that forests and shrublands had a neutral and often negative effect to mental well-being, and they concluded that environments with open aspects provided the best cognitive restoration overall. Most previous studies have looked at nature from an in vivo or in-person perspective, although some have started to look at technologies such as virtual and augmented reality. These typically use an immersive pseudo-live position as the basis for the study. In terms of potential use within a therapy room, VR definitely has a place. However, it is costly to provide and doesn't suit all clients due to being so immersive and potentially claustrophobic. We reviewed many studies, and there's little doubt that being in and around nature is for most people a comforting experience and seems to be restorative to our anxiety and stress levels. But we wanted to know if similar restoration could be achieved by just briefly viewing images of nature rather than being there in person. Therefore, the questions that we asked in our study were if short-term exposure to images of nature spaces could help reduce stress and anxiety. And if so, does the exposure to images of blue spaces impact more significantly than exposure to green spaces? And does a more prolonged exposure to those images have a more significant impact? We hypothesized that stress and anxiety would be lower following a short exposure to images of blue spaces, and that blue space images would provide better restoration than mixed spaces. We also considered that the improvements would not increase with a longer exposure. "79 participants responded to our survey. Our only exclusion was under 18s, and we recruited through the university's Sonar system, and those participants received course credits. We also recruited using the researchers' own social media accounts and by word of mouth. No incentives were made to those groups of participants. We used 2 scales to capture stress and anxiety before and after viewing the images. We used the immediate perceived stress scale. This was created by the researchers and was adapted from the perceived stress scale, or PSS-14. The adaptation was necessary in the wording of the statements, and it was to capture the stress scores in the present moment rather than during the past 2 weeks, which is the standard definition in the PSS-14. The current anxiety level measure scale was used to assess the participants' present moment anxiety levels. Our study was conducted online using the SciToolkit web-based solution. Participants responded to a link and entered the survey at the participant information screen. After completing the consent, they were presented the anxiety and stress scales for the first time. They were then randomly allocated to one of 6 study groups, before being presented with a video of several still images relevant to their study group. The participants then completed the anxiety and stress questionnaires again, before being shown the debrief screen. There were 3 main study groups: blue environments, green environments, and a mixture of blue and green. Each main group type was split into 2, 5-minute duration videos and 10-minute duration videos. To create our videos, we first selected images by creating a long list for each environment type. We then narrowed this down, and the criteria were that images must be predominantly of the environment type, should not contain humans or animals, should not contain man-made structures, and the researchers then narrowed that list down by voting for their preferred in each of the groups. 10 images of each environment were used to create videos. The 5-minute videos comprised of 10 images shown for 30 seconds each. The 10-minute video was simply 2 times a 5-minute video. And the videos were supported by a low-volume benign soundtrack designed to minimize distraction for the participant. As I mentioned earlier, our participants were initially planned to be evenly counterbalanced across 6 survey groups. However, due to a coding error, they were distributed among only 3 survey groups: blue 5-minute, blue 10 minutes, and mixed 5 minutes. As a result of that, the analysis used fewer variables than planned, requiring slightly adjusted hypotheses, although we were still able to meet most of our aims of our study. Initially, 79 respondents participated. However, after removing incomplete data and running a box plot analysis to identify outliers, we were left with 57 participants. The participants' ages ranged from 18 to 58, and the gender split was heavily biased towards females. There was an even distribution of participants across 3 survey groups. So, what did we find? Well, in line with our hypotheses, viewing images of nature spaces reduced anxiety and stress. Contrary to our hypothesis, there was no significant difference in the anxiety and stress between the blue only and the mixed blue and green environments. But in line with our hypothesis, the duration of viewing did not impact outcomes, suggesting that just a few minutes is enough to provide restoration. We also found that anxiety reduction was considerably greater than stress reduction. We saw a 49% reduction in anxiety compared to a 9% reduction in stress. Other findings were that stress was negatively correlated with age, but there was no correlation with anxiety and age, and there was no significant gender correlations. We were pleased to see that our image-initiated results were in line with previous in vivo studies, although we did anticipate there to be more of a difference between the study groups. We expected blue environments to be more restorative because those images align more closely with openness, as in the savanna and biophilia hypothesis. Our coding error meant that we had no direct comparison to green, only to mixed. And 7 of our mixed images could also be considered as open aspects, and therefore that could account for the lack of any difference in the results. So what's happening? How is this? Why is this working? There are 2 main theories as to the mechanics of why we see improvements in stress and anxiety when viewing nature. We consider that both blue and green environments are restorative if they are open aspect. Kaplan and Kaplan suggest in their attention restoration theory, 1989, that open aspects such as lakes, rivers and meadows are less impactful on our cognitive attention processing needs. In a nutshell, this means that there are less places to have to look to consider risks and evaluate actions. Similarly, Ulrich et al. 1991 offer their stress reduction theory that has more evolutionary precision, and which suggests we are innately drawn to a more open environment where we can spot potential harm and possible sustenance. We had some study limitations. It was an online setting, which limited our control over the participants' environments, and because we played the soundtrack under the images to help eliminate distractions, we asked participants to wear headphones, but we couldn't control for this. Our survey had an age and gender bias. The sample was skewed considerably towards younger females. And it became evident during our research that standard definitions of nature environments do not yet exist, making comparisons and replications unreliable. Future studies should look to use a standard method to categorize environments, or create a standard method to categorize environments. And also a comparison of environment effects with a doing nothing control group would also be beneficial. The implications for our study are visual aids in waiting rooms, integration into therapy room decor, interventions for use during therapies, and visual aids for homework and self-guided relaxation. My take-home message for you is that our research indicates that incorporating nature images in therapy rooms as brief interventions, especially for anxiety relief, yields positive and significant outcomes. It is cost-effective and carries very low risk. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found this interesting as I have, and I'm happy to respond to your questions in the comments section. You can also reach out to me anytime via email, and thank you very much for watching. Diocken Val Jan.